facilities assessment of a local church. And one of the things they're doing with their visioning team is to try to determine the building that they have, what do they have to put into it to last the next 5 to 50 years, and maybe there's some other things they can do with the site, like adding affordable housing or whatever kind of a site usage. So today is a non-invasive visual facilities assessment of both the exterior and the interior, where we're looking at mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and carpet wear and tear, and all the things inside. And then on the outside, we'll be looking at remaining useful life of the roof and the siding and the windows, and giving them ROM costs. ROM, R-O-M, stands for rough order of magnitude, saying, in the next few years, you got to spend X amount of dollars, and put that into your vision plan of where you want to go with that. And so today we'll be walking around looking at that. And one of the first things I want to point out for churches is there's always, well, not always, but most of the time, we call them additions upon additions. And so the original church was built back when, then we expanded, then we made an education wing, and then another hall or another new sanctuary, etc. And so this is a good example of that, where we can see we have the original building. It's long and skinny. It's actually 2 stories. On the other side, we'll see the second side, or the taller half. And then you have, at some point in time, a newer sanctuary or gathering space, and then we have some kind of little tie-in between them. And so a lot of churches, even schools, are like this. When you see the portables out there, or you see the extensions or expansions or things like that. So this is part of future, maybe there will be another remodel. Maybe there will be a different use of the site. So come with me and we'll walk around the building. So some of it is brick, some of it is wood, different types of wood siding. We've got horizontal bevel siding, we've got panel siding, we've got what's called tongue and groove vertical siding, more panel, and then brick. And so we're looking at brick, we're looking for cracks or steps or any kind of chipping in the mortar. This mortar looks really good, in good shape. The bricks look like they're in good shape. I don't see any evidence of cracking or damage in this area. We've got wood soffits, we've got a little bit of paint peeling, but that's normal. I don't see rot happening. One of the interesting parts of this building, we've got on this roof, we have gutters that are nailed on, aluminum gutters with downspouts. But on that building, we have what's called built-in gutters. So you can see the roofing material actually comes in and makes this trough, and that is called a built-in gutter. So the built-in gutters rely on roofing membrane that's properly sealed, and because if you get those leaks, you'll have leaks now into the kind of the structure of the roof, if you will. And so we'll be looking at that later when we jump up onto the roof. We have the same type of roof on both buildings, probably done at the same time. It's a shingle, asphalt shingle, looks the same, has the same wear patterns. And so that's fairly typical. The roof is done all at once. What I'm looking at on this elevation is what looks to be replacement vinyl windows. So maybe in the original building we had metal frame, and yeah, you can actually see that. There's your aluminum metal frame windows, and maybe even, that's a yellow vinyl, I thought it was wood. But you had aluminum frame windows. Here's an example of the, the colored panes of glass, fairly typical in a church building, nice colors. And then over here we have replacement vinyl windows. And we can tell they're replacement because they're sticking out a little far. They have different kinds of trim around them. And so I'm interested to know how those are properly flashed in and weather tight and not leaking. Because at the bottom of a panel, below a window, we can see a whole bunch of paint blistering there. And that's an indication that there's water behind that. And so we don't see typical details of metal head flashing over the windows. Instead, it's sealed in. So you see lots of sealant around it, trying to keep the water out. But actually, this type of siding is a drainage siding, so water can get in behind it and it needs to get out. So we'd see these blister lines where water is trapped in there trying to get out and it can't. So I'm a little concerned about the windows, a little concerned about how the earth, the landscaping is just kind of up against the windows. We want that 6 inches of separation in the code. This is good metal flashing at the concrete wall. I don't know why I don't see it here, so water can run down, sit on this, and even run under. Same with this instance. So you can see the failed sealants. You can see the gaps. Now, we might want to check that. And again, you can see the kind of the paint at the bottom of those boards is sitting on that concrete, so it's wicking up. You can see it cracking and kind of blistering, or has been painted over in the past. And so you want a separation. See how these boards are sitting on the concrete? These boards over here have about an inch gap above the flashing, so they let the water out and they're not sitting in the water to soak it up. In this area, and even on both sides, we're under about a 3-foot overhang. Notice the condition of the wood, even though it's the same face or sun exposure, we have this overhang and cover. The wood looks good in that condition. Over here, there is no cover, and so we get more weather, more water, more sun exposure, and so that actually tends to start flaking the paint, cracking the boards. You can see these boards are loose. The nails have actually come out. A little bit punky. We can see lots of painting, stripping and painting because the paint has, basically blistered off. We've got a lot more wear on these pieces than we do on these pieces. Now, they may be a different age, but the overhang of the siding really makes a big difference. You can come, what I'm talking about, in here, under cover, we've got wear on that outside edge that's getting wet, and it looks great back here. So this looks like that, meaning just good coverage. Okay, one thing we're looking for under these soffits, especially under flat roofs. So I can see the roof has a drain here and a drain there. And so this drain is inbound. That drain is through wall or outbound. It's a scupper that comes through the wall there. So these inbound drains tend to pool water at these corners of the flat roofs. And so I'm going to be looking up at these soffits, and I can show you, if you come over here, we can see there's been soffit repairs. We can see some drywall work that didn't quite get plastered up. We can see the edges actually peeling. You can see these edges of the drywall actually coming down a little bit. So these are indications that we've had water leakage coming through here. We can see the nail pops in the drywall. And again, over here, if you look here, you get some kind of feel for the finishes. But along these edges where we get water spilling over or getting in between things, you can see we've got blistering drywall and some nail pops and things like that that indicate water has gotten in, or there's water spilling over. And so we can also see that from the beams. So we got nice condition of beam under the overhang, nice condition of beam under the overhang, and in this particular area we have wear and tear on the beam. It's being painted over, but you can see the paint, so it's definitely a clue. You can even see the fascia wear and tear on this versus that versus that. And so you can see there's been water spilling over here, so I would say there's, maybe the drains need to be reconfigured or maintained a little bit better. And that would probably cause this window to leak. We can see water coming down the inside of the window. We can see water stains at the bottom of the window. We can actually see rotten wood at the bottom of the window trim. So just by visually looking, you can see this window is leaking, probably because this roof is spilling over. We're just talking about soffits leaking and maybe some little drywall evidence because of that internal drain. So look up here, we have the same kind of internal drain, same kind of flat roof, and we can definitely see soffit replacement. And so we know these flat roof drains have a little history of potentially leaking. So we want to check those. So I'm under here looking at the soffit. I can see soffit venting. This is our low roof vent for the attic roof, and that's great. I see some drywall and some water staining here on the soffit, meaning water is coming down, getting into that area. So we'll want to check the roof above this location. Again, at the siding, but also the roof. Remember our soffit, continuous soffit vent that went all the way around the perimeter of the roof. I only see 2 roof vents up there. They're called mushroom vents or AF50s, but that's the upper roof ventilation. So I think there's 2 in each one of these little alcoves. I'm thinking that the roof is under-ventilated. So we'll want to look at the plans. We'll want to get up there on the roof and just make sure that there's more ventilation happening, because that'll preserve our shingle life. You know, a hot roof will make your shingles curl. And so we can kind of see some curling actually right here, and kind of on this elevation. You can see the shingles are kind of buckling a little bit, kind of curling from extra heat, I anticipate. Here we're just walking around the same building, but you can see the cupping shingles on this elevation, right in this lower part. And even over into here, we see the shingles are kind of raising up a little bit, and that's an indication of heat. And so we'll want to verify the attic ventilation, and it'll also affect the remaining useful life of the roof shingle. Let's look around the downspout, see if the downspout shows evidence of leaks. This one looks pretty good. See the brown dripping coming around each joist. So this is a sweating attic. So it condenses on the joist, runs down the joist, and drains out at the bottom. And you can actually see that all the way along, see the little brown at each joist line. And so we've got a real hot attic. You can see some nail pops in there. We've got peeling paint, delaminating gyp sheathing, again, moisture, and just kind of sweating to death up in that attic space. So with a visual walk around, we can see all these things and then do further investigation if we need to. Big drywall seam and gap, a couple more. Cracking, evidence of repainting. And remember, this mirror image of the other side doesn't look near as worn or weathered, and so I bet you the roof ultimately slopes that way. And so the water is spilling over a little bit. Here, as far as soffit ventilation, you can see these incremental vents, if you will, as opposed to a continuous line. And so part of that is this space where it's not vented can sometimes get restricted depending on the framing plan. But as we come over here, we should have a low vent or some kind of way for this roof area to vent. And so we have a lot of peeling paint. So this is evidence of it's wet, it's kind of sweating a little bit, and it's blistering. And so same conditions on that side. We also have peeling paint on the siding here. This may be a ventilation issue. It may be a bathroom on the other side of the wall that needs a little more ventilation. So there's things we're just noticing, and then we'll go inside and take a look at that. Here we're working with Carson, the drone operator here, and this is the advantage of having him on site. Remember, we were talking about the peeling paint on the soffits, and I was saying, well, I don't think there's any adequate roof ventilation. And I can see my vents across the ridge, but I don't have any real roof vents in these little projections. And so these areas of the roof are under-ventilated, That's probably why the paint's peeling and things like that on the soffits. So it's nice to have this, hey, let's see it from above. Hey, here you go. It's another way to look at the building. I take pictures of these. Yep. Can you get in real close to these? Yeah.
How close do we want?
That looks good.
So we can zoom in too.
There you go. Okay. Let's go over there a little bit. So I'm interested in, why is that?
The dark spot?
Yeah, the dark spots.
Okay.
That could be a leak. Let's see what's going on there.
Okay.
So with a good telephoto lens on the drone, we can get right up in here and see. Can you get a little closer? Can we see some sealant? Can you zoom in a little bit? We can see torn boots and missing sealant or rings around those. Take a picture. Great. And back up a little bit or zoom out. Let's go over to this dark rings around the vents. So here's another indication of hot attics, and you can kind of see the dark rings around it. We can really see a lot of hot air coming out of that attic, and it actually turns things black around it. These are warm attics. There we go. Let's kind of.
We're pretty zoomed in on
Yep.
it.
Yep. Great. Take us over to the chimney. I'm going to zoom in on the flashing. We can see the top of the chimney cap too. Yeah, come up and look down on this. There you go. See the cracks in the top of the chimney cap. So we need some maintenance there. Yep. The mortar's getting a little crusty and starting to chunk out a little bit because of the water flowing through it. Take a picture. Okay. And go down to our flashing.
Okay.
Let's pick up the top of it. So we can see the edge flashing with the top sealant joint. The metal flares out. It's called a pitch pocket. That used to be filled with pitch. Now we can fill it with sealant. And so that's one way of flashing a chimney. Another way is to do what's called kerf cuts, where we cut into the brick mortar and actually insert the metal in there so that it drains properly. So either one are fine. This flashing looks good.
Just checking the other side.
Yep. So a lot more water on this brick face coming from the cracked masonry caps on top. This much water running down would be, I want to look at the inside to see if I'm getting water staining on the brick on the inside of the building. So we'll check that out. This was the area that we were talking about that showed some water draining down the front side. So here's our standing water and a busy intersection of built-in gutter, shingles, flat roof, all coming together in that corner. And that just looks busy. And so it's complicated. It's not real sealed. Take a good picture of that. So this is why we're getting water leaking into we've tried to do some patching. We've tried to do.
It's got multiple layers on it?
Yeah.
Visual observations here in the sanctuary, and we're just doing a review of the interior assembly. We've got some sheetrock seams that have signs that they may have water intrusion or some slight shift in the structure. So we're going to go take a look at those further on the outside of the building, see if that's signs of water intrusion or if we need to do a scope of work related to that.
Going back to the facilities assessment and the vision planning, we're working with a lot of churches when they have additional site space and they want to do something a little bit different with the site, or they have a lot of extra site, and local jurisdictions are meeting with them saying, hey, this is a great place to put in affordable or low-income housing, whether it's apartments or single-family homes, and would you be interested in partnering? So the jurisdictions are making it easy for churches and developers to work together. But here's an existing example of they have some space over in the corner and they put in a community garden. And so that's a neat use of existing space. as well as parking. But you can see we've got nice trees, we've got a big parking that wraps all the way around. And so a lot of churches built in the 50s, or the baby boom generation, had a lot of families, a lot of kids, there was a lot of activity. And now, now in today's time, we have virtual attendees. We've got congregations online. We've got different uses for the space. And so this is a forward-thinking building owner and their visioning team kind of saying, what can we do with this over the next 5 to 10 years? Or actually, what do we need to do with it? And then how do we work in these other visions or repurposing of our space? Here's the rest of this beautiful site, but do we need all that space for church expansion or other things as a functioning church? Or can we use this space as additional housing? It's a neat thing that this visioning team is working on. Around the outside of the building, we've shown you what we're doing on the inside of the building. So this is just a really good example of a visual only, non-invasive, but let's put some educated eyes on your property and see what you have, and then we can help you start planning for the future. So if you're interested in something like this, reach out to us and we'll be happy to talk. Thanks for watching.